to Unwound, the podcast which will look at the art of guitar making through the eyes and words of some of the best luthiers in the world. I'm delighted to say that for these podcasts, I'm going to be joined by David from DK Classical Guitars, which is one of the top importers of classical guitars in the UK. So, David, thanks so much for agreeing to do these podcasts. We're going to really benefit from your expertise.
Well, thanks, Ian. Very good of you.
No, it's great. Just tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into guitar, into fine guitars. Just give us it's the first episode, so I think it'd be good if people knew a bit about you.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, like many people, I started playing guitar in my teens. 14, started with fingerstyle guitar for a couple of years, and then quickly went on to classical lessons at 16 for a couple of years. Then played away just on my own. Then my mid-20s, took another couple of years of lessons, and then my 30s, another couple of years. So I was playing away just as an amateur player. But I found that it was very, very difficult to buy a classical guitar in Scotland. There was nowhere to buy one. There's no shop sold quality instruments. Guitar makers came on board round about the late 80s, early 90s. There started to be some classical guitar makers in Scotland. But again, you had to know what you want because they were making them on commission. They didn't have an outlet for them. So it was quite tricky. So I actually probably waited longer than I should have probably to get a quality concert guitar. Really my late 40s before I got one. And I had to travel 500 miles to the south of England, to see a range. So at that point I thought, to myself, maybe a bit of mileage in having a range of guitars, in the north of Britain. There's got to be some kind of market in maybe Scotland and the north of England. So I went, this would be about 16, 17, 18 years ago, something like that. I first approached Bill Keldy, who was the kind of senior classical guitar maker in Scotland at the time. Wasn't too many, but he taught guitar making or stringed instrument making at a college in Glasgow. So he made all sorts of stringed instruments as well as guitars. So he was very, very helpful. And there was, again, a handful of classical guitar makers in Scotland, not too many, maybe 3 or 4. So basically I set it up and started selling them. Bill said to me for English luthiers or other British luthiers, he suggested I go and see, because I holidayed in the southwest of England every year in Devon. And he suggested, well, if you're down there, go and see Kevin Aram. He's very, very well known. So I went to see Kevin and he agreed to come on board with me, which was terrific. That gave me some luthier who was, really well known, having made guitars for Bream in the 80s. So that got me started about 16, 17 years ago. And just kind of gradually, very, very gradually built it up. And gradually got to know more luthiers in England and abroad. Mostly actually from recommendations from other luthiers, for the most part. If I knew that I could trust a particular luthier who made really high crafted guitars, then I could trust that who they were recommending was good. I was very, very busy in business at the time, so I didn't have a lot of time to travel. So and that's worked out. Yeah, that's always worked out. I've always been good guitars. So that's really how it started.
Yeah. Because I described you there as an importer of classical guitars. I just really, it was just the word that came to mind. But of course, for a start, you weren't importing them. You were selling the local produce.
Some might say importing from England, but
yeah, well, we won't get into that in this.
No, exactly.
But, but of course you've expanded, and as you've just said, you've now got guitars from all over the world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I should say from the outside, I suppose that David and I both have quite similar views on what we like.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to guitars, we do like what's now called the traditional Spanish style, but of course it wasn't traditional when Antonio Torres kind of consolidated it in the 19th century. It was new then, but by traditional we distinguish between that and some of the more recent developments, such as lattice tops and the like. But that's not a prejudice that we want to impose on this program and or this podcast, because we do want to have people from all traditions coming on to speak about what they're up to.
Indeed, yes. Yeah, I mean, as you say, my personal preference, as I think yours is, Ian, is for broadly the traditional, broadly Spanish guitar. But one can't gainsay any players who enjoy playing modern guitar, double tops or lattice.
Mm-hmm.
If that's their preference, then that's absolutely fine. I tend to find there's enough difference in each luthier within the traditional. In fact, even if I have a few guitars from the same luthier, they're all different. So, this is the fascinating thing about doing this. I could display 10, spruce tops with Indian rosewood, and they might all look pretty similar, but once you pick them up and play them, they're all incredibly different. So it is quite fascinating, especially when I get a player in who's never experienced that, and they're just blown away by it. And the first visit can often be quite overwhelming for them. It's a lot to take in, and have to come back again and think about it. So yeah, that keeps you going. And every time a guitar arrives, you're still wondering what it's going to sound like. So,
yeah, that's the magic of these fine handcrafted guitars.
Yes.
But in this podcast, as in every one of these podcasts, we'll be speaking to a luthier, someone who makes his living from making these incredible things that are that is the guitar. And the luthier we've got today is someone that you've had his guitars.
Yes.
I think you may have one at the moment.
I do have one sitting here beside me. Yeah.
Oh, great! Yeah, great. And of course, just to reassure people, that doesn't mean that we're only going to be focusing on the guitars that that you sell. It's not quite about that. But in this first episode, it just happens to be one of those luthiers, and it's one I came across when I was in Italy and actually played his guitar for part of a concert that I gave there. It wasn't part of the plan, but I mean, the instrument was just so beautiful. And the sound, I mean, it was beautiful in every way. The sound, the aesthetic, the shape, the craftsmanship, a work of art. And that's what we're trying to promote in this podcast, is the idea that luthiers are artists.
Yes,
they're true artists, just as much as a guitar player is, and what they create are works of art. Of course, there's a lot of you might call scientific precision and even theory behind that art, but then it's the same with Leonardo da Vinci.
Yes, this extra element which makes the fine guitar is really an art. You can be the best craftsman or engineer, whatever, and make a very, very exact instrument, but there's some unknown factor, that the luthier adds once they find their voice, having made a number of guitars, they can find their own voice. A bit like a player, you know, eventually finds their own voice, you know, their own way of expressing things. And it's the same with luthier. And I think most luthiers would probably tell you that it's difficult for them to write down a recipe of how to achieve that, and they probably can't. You know, most of them would say they've come to it through experience, probably, you know, trial and error, whatever, and eventually they get a voice where they say, yeah, this is what I want to do, this is the type of sound I want to achieve, you know, and pretty much stick with it, you know.
Okay, well, without further ado, let's bring our special guest into things. It's Danilo Bazzana, fantastic, as I say,
Hi, Danilo.
From Italy. So thanks for joining us for this episode 1 podcast.
Fantastic. Hi, guys. I am very happy to be here with you, and thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, great to see you, Danilo.
No, it's great. No, it's our pleasure. It really is. So tell us a bit about yourself. How did you get into the guitar?
Yeah. I discovered and started playing the guitar at 13 years old. And I started just like many others with a classical guitar. And I taking my first lesson from a guy who lived in the same street as my parents. And at the time, I liked playing the song of the great Italian singer and songwriter, like Guccini, Fabrizio De André, Battisti. Okay. Then I discovered rock music, and I fell in love with it. So I listened rock music band like from the 70s, like Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, progressive rock like Pink Floyd, and so for many years I also played the electric guitar, and I had various bands. I had where I played the covers from the 70s, and I also had a primary band with which we made our own music, inspired by the grunge music from the 90s, hard rock. And we also recorded an album. I'm very proud of this. Even maybe 10 people listen to it, maybe.
Well, if you want, we can link it below in the description and get a few.
No. I think there's not any link about it. So we can summarize that I wanted to be a rock star when I was young. Okay.
I was the same.
Oh, yeah, great.
We've all done that. We've all been there.
Now, present day, no, because I'm a father, I have kids, and the dream is going on.
Maybe just as well. And I think certainly from the point of view of us guitar players, definitely just as well, because your instruments are superb.
Absolutely.
Tell me, how did you get into making them?
Yeah. After the high school, 18 years old, and the high school diploma, I didn't have a clear idea about my future at university. Okay. So I discovered the existence of a guitar and violin making school in Milan, Civica Scuola di Luthier. And I made a deal that it would be great to learn how to make an instrument. Okay. I therefore enroll and attend the school for 3 years, plus a year of external internship in a workshop of an already established luthier. And I have to thank my teachers at school for introducing me to this fantastic work. with the use of the main tools, the different techniques, the use of the various types of glues, for example, and the basic of the shellac varnishing. It was a very good period for me. Not easy, because I certainly wasn't particularly good at manual work at the time. Yes, but with tenacity, I managed to move forward and prove myself. Okay, and I have very good memories. I remember that, for example, the first few days at school were spent just sharpening chisels and scrapers, with no good result. But I then graduated from school in Milan, and for 3 years I then worked in Marco Viola's workshop. He's a luthier, where I had previously done a year of external internship for the school. In Marco's workshop, we mainly carried out repairs, restorations, and construction of electric and archtop guitars. I learned a lot during these years, and right here in his workshop, it occurred to me to build my first classical guitar, almost for fun. And after the first one, it became my passion. And the path to follow in guitar making. Okay. I have to say another thing, that in my journey as a classical guitar builder, I didn't have a mentor, a real guide on classical guitar. Okay. I learned on my own. And I think this thing has two aspects. One, positive, because I think I reached a good level just on my own. One, negative, because it certainly took me longer to get there, I think. And but that's how it went.
Yeah.
Perhaps going back, spending time with a luthier already esteemed for classical guitars would have made it easier for me, maybe. And it is certainly advice that I tend to give to young people who want to start, because for me it's a fundamental thing in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah,
This is my
yeah.
that's
Right.
fascinating.
Yeah.
Have you got
said,
some?
you were saying you learned to do repairs and restoration, as well as working on other styles of guitars, archtop and whatever. I tend to think that's a very, very good way of learning about luthiery from repairs and restoration point of view, because it's really a different skill set, isn't it, from working with brand new materials. You know, if you're restoring a guitar, you must learn an awful lot about, retrofitting, as we say. Yeah, must
Absolutely.
be a very good way to learn.
Yeah. And for example, making repairs on every type of guitar, also electric guitar, from the point of view of the fretboard, okay, and learn how to work on the fretboard, on the frets in the right way. I think that it's a fundamental and important thing, because it's also on a classical guitar, it's a very important part.
Oh yes, definitely. Yeah. I tend to think that what tends to be wrong with very cheap or inexpensive factory guitars is that there's very little or no time spent on that aspect of it, as you say, the fingerboard and the fretwork and making it easy to play. And most people who, complain about their very inexpensive guitar is it's very hard to play. And I've
No.
seen luthiers here fix that for them, you know. If they just spend a bit of time, you know, making the fretboard and the fingerboard and the nut and saddle, you know, as easy as it can be, at least it becomes playable, you know.
Yeah.
The sound's not going to be anything like
it changed completely the instrument.
Yeah.
If you do well this work, this part, in my opinion.
Yeah. You'll get everything out that's there. The potential is what potential is there will come out if you can play it.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah, well, we've often discussed before, David, how a good instrument can be hampered by a bad setup.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I think it's interesting that you came at this initially as a player. You know, you had started to learn guitar as a boy, and of course, you went through your rock star phase, but that's still very much playing. And you mentioned that initially you didn't find the manual aspect of the work to be a strength.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I think that's quite.
It was very hard for me. It was very hard
because some guitar makers have come at building from a manual background and not a playing background. I'm thinking famously, I think I'm right in saying this, that Jose Romanillos was in that category.
Yes.
Yeah. So you know, that's
some come from a cabinet making background, like Simon Ambridge, for example. You know, Simon Ambridge, famous English luthier. He came from a cabinet making background originally. You know, and I think he heard a Torres guitar in concert and just fell in love and decided to go for it.
Yeah.
So
So you essentially served your time in a workshop doing lots of restorations. When you started to seriously build classical guitars, what did you have particular guitars that you wanted to emulate and copy, particular styles, particular schools of guitar making? Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
For my guitar, I started by taking inspiration from the great luthiers of the past, obviously, and in Italy, especially with Hauser style. Okay. However, I have never made actual copies, but I have stolen the design ideas, the shapes and the measurements, reproposing them in my own version. Okay. For some years, therefore, my guitar was, to summarize, was a guitar with a traditional construction inspired by the historical school of guitar making, mainly with a spruce top, with 7 or 5 fan braces, and a thin elongated layer under the bridge. This was my initial project. Okay. I mainly use spruce for the soundboard because by listening to recordings of the great guitarists of the past and today great guitarist, guitar player, I realized that my ideal sound comes from guitars built with this material. In my mind, if I close my eyes, there is the type of sound. I have also built cedar guitars. I don't think there is a question of what is better or worse, cedar or spruce, but only what is closest to your sensitivity. Okay.
Yeah.
And in recent years, I have instead approached the French school of guitar making, because I had in my workshop an original guitar by Danilo Friedrich, okay, from the late 70s, a cedar guitar, and it fascinated me a lot. And so I made a survey, taking the measurements and the thicknesses of the top and the internal bracing. And I therefore started to work experimenting on this type of project using spruce as a top. And today my concert guitar is based on that type of instrument.
Okay.
Okay. It would be, yeah, it would be, that's great. Could you explain to people listening? I mean, there will be some people listening who already know the answer to this question, but many won't. Could you explain the difference between this model that you've adopted, Friedrich, and the more what we think of now as the more traditional Hauser style guitar with the 5 or 7 fan bases? Like,
the differences are on the internal project, okay, or the fan bases, because Hauser has a thin layer spruce layer under the bridge,
yes.
very thin. Friedrich, like Boucher, for example, had a bar, a real bar under the bridge. Okay, in that case, that project has 2 bars, one under the bridge and one between the first bar, the whole bar, the first traverse bar, and one, 2 bars, one under the bridge and one between this last bar and the first bar under the sound wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
And this for me, and another thing about Friedrich guitars, in some case they had laminated side. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, David. Is it right, David? Okay. These 2 aspects for me affect on the sound in this type, affect on the sound for the balance, the general balance of the instrument, I think. Speaking, for example, about polyphonic, okay, you have a very balance between the high bass and intermediate, the medium range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is a characteristic of this type of instrument, and a very good balance between bass and treble.
Yes.
And a very good sustain on the treble side.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think.
Yeah.
In
Well,
general,
you've certainly achieved that with this guitar here. Certainly. Yeah. This guitar here is certainly everything you say, very balanced overall and good sustain and all that. I wanted to ask you about the Torrefied top.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think the previous one, this is the first one you've sent to me with it. Is this something you're doing regularly now?
No, regularly. The instrument that you have in your shop is the sixth instrument with Torrefied top. I have a sample here. Can I?
Yep.
yes, please.
Okay. This is Torrefied spruce. Okay. And this is normal spruce. It is a top aged top because it's a top from 2001, I think, 20 years. And this is normal spruce and Torrefied, because so we can see the difference in terms of color. Okay. We have a more brown, reddish color, aged color with Torrefied spruce, and I think it's a very good aesthetic condition. I really like when you varnish it. It's a very good color, amber tones.
Yes, it's very beautiful.
I think it's beautiful.
I like it as well. Yeah, I like it.
It's one aspect. The other aspect, it's for me was an experiment. Okay, to try this type of wood. After 6 guitars, I can make considerations about it. Okay, and I think that players and guitar players who tries this type of guitar with this type of spruce tell me that it's like to play a guitar that it's just a little bit old, a little bit just played. Okay, from the beginning.
Yes.
Okay. And it has from the it has from the beginning a more mature sound.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I think, and it's for some point of view, it's a little more similar to cedar. Okay, it's a little darker sound, and I tell you these things because players that are that play musicians that tries this type of guitar that usually plays with cedar, okay, that has that type of sound in mind, play my guitar in Torrefied spruce and like it. Okay. So these are my considerations about Torrefied. It's a good alternative. In an aesthetic way and in an acoustic way, it works.
That's fantastic because I mean this is a development that you've made since I last tried your guitars. So I'm really looking forward to trying.
But a lot of classical guitar building now use it.
Yeah, that's. I mean, the interesting thing is that actually what's been my main instrument for about 10 years has that. And the thing that interests me, or not interests me, but the thing I find slightly amusing is that the difference aesthetically matches the difference in sound. It's darker. Darker to look at, and it's darker to just in order to appeal to as wide an audience as possible. Could either of you take us through what you mean by torrefied wood?
The wood is cooked. It becomes more lighter because you lost water. Okay.
Right.
Interesting. So, do you think that a wood that's gone through that process is simply more responsive? I mean, you mentioned that it's lighter. So, is it?
It's a difficult question. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's more responsive. I don't know. I don't have we have to experiment. I have to experiment with this for 50 guitars, not 6. And maybe I can answer that question. For now, I think it has a good response, acoustically speaking, for sure, for me. And it's very beautiful aesthetically. But it's more response than a normal. I don't know. I don't have much data. I don't know how to speak about. But
some of the problem when
for now,
some of the problem when we're discussing these things is it's difficult to any guitar in isolation is difficult to compare to something else. I would need this one with another guitar of yours which wasn't Torrefied, to be able to definitely say, but it might only come down to which one I prefer or which one another player prefers. The bottom line is it's a great guitar. So
we can say, I think that we can say that it works or not. For me, works.
If it hadn't made a good guitar,
and it's a good alternative.
If it hadn't worked out as a good guitar, you would have thought, no.
Now you mentioned that Friedrich used laminated sides. Is that something you've started to use?
Not yet. Not yet. But I want to try it.
Because I have
for an aspect of intonation. That's right. Okay. General intonation of the instrument to lowering the intonation. I want to try it.
Yeah, and by intonation, we're talking here about the resonance, the internal
resonance
of the instrument. Yeah. Which in most cases is around about G for most guitars.
So you're looking to lower? Did you say lower the resonance a little bit?
Yeah,
if you can.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah.
I want to lowering my guitar's resonance is G or F sharp G or G a G sharp. It depends.
That's all quite normal.
I want to try to lowering this resonance, maintaining the balance on the trebles, and it's hard. I think. The sustain on all the registers on the high parts of the fretboards, and this is the goal for me.
Well, do you know?
Not only for me, for a lot of guitar making.
The whole resonance debate can be quite a rabbit hole to go down. Quite a journey. Some people swear by it. Very, very low resonance. And some players it doesn't matter that much. So again, it comes down to preference.
As you say, Danilo, the problem is trying to maintain the qualities that you want in the treble. Whilst lowering the resonance. And I've tried some guitars that have achieved that. I remember trying a guitar by Fritz Ober, which actually had an E flat. Resonance. It sounded really good in drop D tuning, and it did have a very beautiful treble as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Julian Bream certainly was one of those guitarists that liked a low resonance in his instrument. The reason for that was that if you're playing in a big hall, the high frequency, the high pitch of the treble, it tends to travel very well. But he felt that the bass register didn't in a large hall. So maybe in the fourth or fifth row, the sound was perfectly balanced, but at the end, people were not hearing enough bass. And of course, with a solo guitar, because in a sense you're trying to be every instrument of the orchestra, the bass is so important, because I always say the bass is the most important instrument in the band, because it provides the support. You know, it provides it's harmonic and it's rhythmic. It holds everything else in place.
So in Italy, Danilo, is the preference mostly for spruce, or is cedar very popular in Italy as well? Cedar. Yeah.
Half guitar players, Italian guitar players, plays with spruce, half with
half and half.
With cedar. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, because we often say
is popular.
Yeah. In the UK, it tends to be predominantly spruce. And I was just talking the other day that we maybe think it's the Julian Bream influence. Because he never played cedar. We still spruce guitars, but it's probably about, I would say, 75% spruce. I would say.
Maybe also here in Italy, I think 60-40, maybe.
Yeah.
60-40 spruce. Yeah.
And I think my impression is that most, the vast majority of Italian makers are making traditional styles. I'm not aware of too many who are making double tops and lattice.
This is right.
Yeah,
this is right.
Unlike Germany, where it's phenomenally popular with double tops.
For now, I think that the historical Italian names of luthiery makes traditional instruments.
Yeah.
The most important name worldwide recognized. Okay. Make traditional instruments.
Yes.
But we have very good luthiers that build double tops. But I think the most part of us make a traditional project.
Yeah.
What would, for you, this is a hard question maybe to answer, but well, David and I both like what we here describe as traditional Spanish guitars. So we both have a bias or a prejudice in favor of those instruments, the sorts of instruments that you make. But why do you make those instruments? Why have you not embraced double tops or lattice tops?
Yeah, because it's a difficult question, but I think that I can answer like I did before. My listening from classical guitar recordings was with spruce guitars, Julian Bream's. It's my favorite because so that type of I like that type of sound.
Yes.
Okay. In my mind, I want that type of sound, that type of characteristics. Okay.
Yeah.
But in the future, I want to try and experiment a more modern guitar, modern instrument.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I am working on it.
Right. Okay.
What are the qualities? I mean, you say that you like the qualities of the guitars played by, say, Julian Bream, and
Yeah.
and you like what somebody like Julian Bream is able to produce from a guitar like that.
Yeah.
Could you describe what those qualities are?
Yeah. I think that in general, a good guitar must have some basic characteristics once it's finished. A good sound emission, okay? Very good sustain of the notes in all registers, and a clear division, talking about polyphony between the voices, okay? Which must always be clear and not get confused, okay? And the balance general between treble and bass, it must be very good, okay? And I think that that's a guitar must be a guitar that can satisfy the musician from a timbre, aesthetic, emission, and playability point of view. Okay, that are fundamental elements for achieving the right synergy between the musician and the guitar.
Yes.
And another important aspect, I think that are materials. Okay, the choice of the materials is fundamental, and certainly the great luthier almost always corresponds to excellent materials. Okay, with the right seasoning, with extra quality. And these are fundamental things, I think.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to ask you was...
I answered the question. I don't know.
Well, the thing is that the answer to, I mean, in the end, I don't know is probably going to be the main answer that
the
most.
best answer,
yeah. It is the answer in the end, but. Do you know, it's funny that the process of getting to an answer of I don't know is actually quite interesting. So it's worth discussing. David, what were you going to say there?
I was just going to ask how you go about, well, maybe not too technical, but how you would control the overtones of the guitar, because some people like a guitar with a lot of heavy overtones, and other people like it quite dry, and I guess just getting it kind of the right balance, I prefer a guitar where there is overtones and you can feel it, but it's not too crazy, it's not too... Sometimes they can be fun to play. I had one which was crazy with overtones, and it was lots of fun, but maybe not the best concert guitar. A lot to control, in other words. If you're having to, when you're playing, control all these overtones flying about. So I noticed that yours they seem to be all in the right place, the overtones anyway. You can feel when you're playing it that they're not intrusive, but they're there. If that makes sense.
Yeah. How do you control that as a maker? Yeah. How do you control what do you do to determine how many overtones or how strong they are?
Yeah. Next question.
Very good.
Okay. No, it's you can control. No, I'm joking. For me and for my career until now, it's all experience. It's all taking this top, analyze it, but only the weight, the density, only a few things, and understand with the experience how to work it, okay, properly.
Yeah.
To obtain what, in my opinion, is the sound that I like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you want, we can to understand maybe better the career of luthiers. We can do a parallel with the career of a musician, if you want.
Yeah.
We can try if you want.
Mm-hmm.
We have time or no?
Yeah, we've got time. These podcasts could be as long or as short.
Okay. No, because I prepared this part because I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad you're saying it. Yeah.
No, so at the beginning, the guitarist thinks and refines the technique. Okay, Ian, with exercise for the right hand and the left hand, arpeggios for example, legato, scales. Okay, the luthier learning to use the tools, files, chisels, scrapers. Okay, and begin to realize how to shape the wood, how to work it properly. Okay. In this period, the musician plays a lot, many notes, perhaps without understanding their true essence and importance. Right? No? Okay. The same goes for the luthier. He builds a lot of guitars, works a lot, but still at a low level of consciousness, I think. Okay. Meanwhile, the musician learns also to read the music and studies its evolution over history with different type of repertoires, for example. Okay. The luthier does the same thing by studying the project of the past luthiers and learning to read the materials. The wood, understanding how to work it to obtain the best result in terms of sound. The next step for the musician is to obtain his own personal sound, right? A mature sound, working on control. Control is the base, I think. The sound becomes more mature, richer, fuller, and more elegant. The luthier, with experience, also refines control in the use of tools and in the use of his hands. And woodworking become increasingly precise. The aesthetics, the general aesthetics of the instruments are all cleaner, symmetric, elegant, and recognizable. For example, the luthier creating personal trademarks in this point of the career, such as the rosette, the shape of the headstock, or some specific decoration that make his instrument recognizable. The last step for me, the most difficult one, is for the musician is the interpretation of the music, moving from just performing it to creating art with his own personality. Okay. The same goes for the luthier, who puts all his experience from over the years and his personality into the creation of his guitar, which make his guitar unique, a piece of art, if we want to say. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, definitely. Yeah.
Do you like this part?
Absolutely.
Perfect, yeah. Very
No,
good.
I think it's something that I talk during these days, this parallel with musician and luthier.
Well,
think-
it's for
Fascinating.
me, it's just about a perfect equivalence. I think the point is that making a guitar is a creative process. After what you said, I wasn't going to bring this up actually, because what you said was such a good a good summary actually to end the podcast on. But yesterday I was speaking to Marco Ramelli, also from Milan, and he was speaking about the physicality of playing an instrument.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
and he made the distinction between explicit teaching, so that's what say he as a teacher can tell his students, and implicit teaching or implicit learning, which is that what the student can only learn by themselves from doing it.
Yeah.
And that's got to do with touch and feel.
Yeah.
I mean, working the elements, which for us is a string on wood. For you is actually actual wood. It's physical.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because we can think that guitar is very particular. Classical guitar, it's very particular instruments. Because and I am fascinated by how in guitar, unlike other instruments like violin or pianoforte, the production of sound occurs through the simple use of the fingers of the right hand, without delegating to bows or hammers or anything.
Absolutely, yeah.
As this intimate aspect creates a symbiosis that is in some ways unique between the musician and his instrument. And for this, it's very important for a musician the choice of the correct instrument.
Yes.
And we, as luthiers, we have to help musicians to understand and choose the right guitar, because one of the more interesting parts of our work is definitely the relationship between musician and luthiers It's fundamental, speaking each other.
I think what Ian was talking about the art of luthier being an art, I think is in relation to playing as well, is that I think probably most luthiers would be, although you've very eloquently told us how you make guitars, a lot of aspects of it, I doubt most luthiers could write that down as a kind of recipe and just say to someone, follow these steps and you will make a great guitar. It's not as simple as that, I don't think, And the same with Ian as a teacher. If he's teaching, Ian's a great player, and people can go, how do you do that? And Ian will say, well, do this, do that, You've got to at least do that. But it's not enough. The player, pupil has to bring, as Ian said, to bring her own to it. And I guess locally is the same. Whoever you taught how to make a guitar, they would have to bring their own personality to it and something to it to make a great guitar. So it's that kind of unknown quality, either from a luthier or a player, which kind of makes the art, I guess. It's unknown. It's, a mystery.
Well, I think having talked to you today, Danilo, it's a bit less of a mystery. slightly less of a mystery than it was at the start of the conversation, because you've given us great insights into the art of guitar making. So just to say thanks very much for listening to this first episode of Unwound. If you do want to support these podcasts, you can do so following the links below to Patreon and the like. And do remember to like and subscribe. And if you do that, click the notify me button, and you'll be able to find out easily when the next episode will be aired. But until then, all the best.